Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Crossing the Line. I'm your host, Isaac King, and today we're going to be talking about the impending American election coming up in just a few days and the threat of a civil war, disturbance, whatever you want to call it, in the aftermath or even the lead up to the American election. We've just had our election here in Australia, and it was a bit of a small victory for us and a big loss, seeming it's a two-party system, and any of the third parties never seem to get anywhere worth of consequence. But in America, just as usual, it's a two-party system as well, and we've got our two main runners are Kamala Harris and Donald J. Trump. As you can see, that the Americans have been carrying on about this for quite some time now, and it seems to be all-encompassing. Every single news source, every single story, every single radio, podcast, YouTube video, it is the only thing anyone seems to be talking about. Even things like the Ukraine war and the war in Palestine and Israel seem to have taken a back burner to the American election, and a lot of talk is coming out about the aftermath of whoever wins. It's whether it's going to be Kamala Harris or Donald Trump. Hopefully Donald Trump wins, and what is exactly going to happen after the election. Now, they are having massive problems with counting votes there in America. They seem to be unable to, do basic math and arithmetic and count votes on the day of the election. They are seemingly having an election month where you can vote several weeks before, and even several days after the election, your votes are still counted in some states and counties. Now, that seems to be a point of contention for a lot of people, especially on the right. Democrats seem to think that you should be able to count votes for 6 months or so until their candidate wins, or basically the other candidate dies of old age or an assassination attempt. Now, Democrats played this game last time in the last election, which is, I believe, why Donald Trump lost. It was because of the massive amount of ballot harvesting and the sheer amount of what we would call fraud and corruption in the voting system, where they changed the laws to suit themselves and screw over their Republican opponents. Whether it was Donald Trump running or not, I don't think anyone really stood a fair chance in that last race. And that was basically just because Donald Trump won the first election and scared the living shit out of the deep state and the Democratic Party. I believe that this election is going to have just as many, if not more, foul play things happening. We've already seen some ballots getting burnt in the ballot boxes, people not being able to vote for their preferred candidate at electronic booths, and a lot of, let's just say, untoward behavior from Democrats and people changing the rules and breaking the law in many cases to favor the Democratic opponent, Kamala Harris. Now, Kamala Harris has just declined to go on Joe Rogan podcast, as you've probably been made well aware, but Donald Trump did go on there and have a nearly 3-hour, I believe, interview with Joe Rogan. It wasn't explosive and as insane as I thought it was going to be. It was quite ho-hum. It really made Donald Trump out to be a normal person, if anything. I don't know how normal you can be when you're the most well-known man in the world and probably the most hated man in the world at the time, and running for president, being a billionaire, and all things like that. I don't know how human you can come across to people, but that Joe Rogan podcast really did make his humanity come out to shine, and I think a lot of Democrats are pretty scared about that. And I know a lot of people that are like leaning either way. I mean, here in Australia, a lot of people don't care because they don't seem to think it affects us, even though it has vast, overreaching ties into our lives here in Australia and across the world, making gas prices and food prices worse, especially us teetering on the edge of World War III and civil war in America. I mean, if civil war or World War III were to kick off, I think we would be suffering here just as much as they'd be suffering over there, and that no one would be able to come out and save us like the Americans apparently would if China ever stepped onto our shores. But the election is only a few days away. The Americans are getting out and voting in droves. A lot of the reporting at the moment, and the polls are coming back saying that Donald Trump is doing very, very well. Hopefully that is the case. And if he wins, what do you think is going to happen? Do you think the left, the Democratic Party, is just going to accept that and shuffle off and stay quiet? I don't like your chances there. I mean, we saw the Black Lives Matter protests and the Summer of Love that erupted across America, and all the protests and everything that continued after Donald Trump's first inauguration. And the amount of deaths, killings, buildings burning down, looting, riots, protesting, churches being burnt down, you name it, it happened. And it just seems to be forgotten in the wake of COVID in the last few years, and the Kamala Harris and Joe Biden regime seems to have made quite a few people forget about all of that. But I never forget here, and I know you guys at home don't. So don't forget to like this video, share this video around, and subscribe to my YouTube channel. Follow me here on YouTube. Also across other platforms, Rumble, Odysee, BitChute, on X as well. And let's get into this first story. Political violence in the US could surge after elections experts warned. Trends on online chatter mirror patterns observed in the lead up to the 2020 elections and January 6 Capitol attack. There could be a potential surge in political violence following the upcoming US election, and pro-Trump right-wing vigilante poll watchers might surveil ballot drop boxes in America and cast their votes, experts warned this week. Now, poll watchers are a legal requirement, and I wouldn't call them right-wing, or they have left-wing poll watchers in America as well. It's just making sure that people are doing their jobs, people are counting the votes, and they're not allowed to interfere in any way. Watching people count the votes is a very normal process. I believe it's enshrined in their constitution. I'm not too sure. Don't hold me to that. I'm not an American. But we saw them last election hiding votes under desks and blocking people from poll watchers from watching them count votes, things like that. That is actual interference. People watching poll workers do their job is not interference at all. It's not like they're getting in their face. They're standing behind a plexiglass or a glass window and just watching them. That is their job. That is what they're supposed to do. Make sure there is no fraud. And if they're blocking people and stopping poll watchers from watching the poll workers, that's a red flag in its own. A new report from the Global Project Against Hate and Extremism. What a fantastic job title that'd be. Where do you work? I work for the Project Against Hate and Extremism. I bet you don't. I bet you only look at political violence in one way. Highlighted alarming trends on online character mirroring patterns observed in the lead up to 2020 elections and the January 6th Capitol insurrection. Meanwhile, Princeton's Bridging Divides Initiative issued a fact sheet with recommendations for dealing with conspiracy-minded monitoring groups like True the Vote, which spread false narratives in 2020, alleging that Democrats had sent paid mules to drop boxes with thousands of illegal votes in order to steal the election from Donald Trump. Whether or not that was enough to sway the election for Donald Trump or Kamala Harris and Joe Biden, they did do that. It was proven that they have done that. They did pay people mules. What's that documentary? 10,000 mules or 1,000 mules, whatever it is, to use drop boxes with thousands of votes, which they're saying illegal votes, which means in states where you're not allowed to ballot harvest, where you're not allowed to give out your votes to other people and for them to cash them in or send them in, that's illegal. And they did do that. That was confirmed that they have done that. Whether or not it was enough for him to lose or win the election, Biden to win the election, we don't know, and we probably never will know, but they did do that. The twin reports highlighted risks to the election and strategies for mitigating them. At the time, one man had been charged over armed attacks on Democratic Party office, and police in Oregon and Washington are investigating suspected arson attacks on ballot boxes in which some ballots were destroyed. The Graph report warning is based on a rise of violent chatter on platforms known as extremist content, including Telegram, Gab, communities, Win, and some other communities across the decentralized social media network known as the Fediverse. The report shows that the overall volume of messages on these platforms may be lower than 2020. The sharp rise in rhetoric violence follows a pattern set ahead of 2020 election. So the reports of people saying crazy shit online and violent extremism and all that is lower than 2020, but they're really, really worried about it now. For example, in October, rhetoric violence related to election denialism increased by 317% on Telegram, 105% on Gab, 25% on Communities Win, and 75% across all selection of Fediverse communities. Violent rhetoric follows a pattern set of the 2020 election. Violent rhetoric related to election denialism. That's a very specific term. And what about when Donald Trump won and all the Democrats and people left us screaming bloody murder in the street were denying that he won fairly? They said it was even Hillary Clinton come out and said that he didn't win and she did, even though she capitulated to him. The report says that across these platforms, users are indulging in violent rhetoric linked to election denialism. What exactly is violent rhetoric? Like, what are they going to do? Like, point out some, examples. And so, what did someone just say? Oh, Donald Trump won the last election, and that's violent rhetoric to them, or is it like actual death threats and things like that? Because calling someone the wrong pronoun to these people is violence. So I don't really judge. I don't really trust their judgment on calling something violent or rhetoric even. Telegram this year have used election denialism to justify calls for violence, including calls for inevitable civil war, and urging users to shoot and kill any illegal voters. Now, that's probably just one nut job on the internet, and they're using that person as like gospel for this story. On Gab, users have threatened perceived election fraudsters and treason charges, calling for the firing squads or the rope, according to the report. It notes the call to the platform for public executions for all voter fraud and the shooting of elected officials labelled as traitors, along with copious amounts of anti-Semitic conspiracy theories. It almost sounds like they've gone into a group about pro-Palestine or something, anti-Semitic conspiracy theories. Maybe they're all pro-Palestine people, which would probably put them in the Democratic Party. Communities Win and is a collection of forums that include the Donald, which was banned from Reddit for hate speech in 2020. According to the Graph report, users have fantasized about a civil war in recent weeks, claiming that Democrats will not relinquish power and that a violent uprising is necessary for great awakening, a concept previously popularized by the QAnon conspiracy movement. So they're basically just saying what the mainstream media are saying, and that if Donald Trump gets, mainstream media saying that if Donald Trump gets in, he's never going to abdicate. He's going to, I don't know, have 1,000-year Donald Trump Reich, which is what the narrative that they are pushing. And if anyone says anything remotely similar on the other side of the spectrum, then it's violent rhetoric. But when they say it, it's okay. The Fediverse communities users have shared posts blaming liberal media and citing a war encouraging violence against perceived political opponents. Graph report warns ignoring these worrying trends will only risk further acts of violence related to election denialism and anti-democratic sentiment. Heidi Burrich, Graph's co-founder, said the report shows that compared to the violent election denial chatter in 2020, numbers have been lower so far this year. They are quickly rising as we approach the election day. So they're still lower. This report's only 4 days old or something. According to the fact sheet, the BDI data shows that 2020 there were 44 incidents of physical monitoring, fewer than 20 Dropbox locations, and estimate 13,000 active sites nationwide. So 44 incidents of physical monitoring. So there was 44 incidents of people standing there and making sure that people putting votes in the drop boxes weren't doing anything untoward and like burning them down. There should be someone watching every single drop box, making sure that they're safe, making sure people don't steal votes, making sure that they throw a thermite grenade in there, like looks like happened to that one in America just the other day. What is wrong with that? You're allowed to sit there and watch and make sure things are getting done legally. That's what it's literally. It's what you're literally supposed to do. It warns, however, that the threats of monitoring activity have resurfaced online during the 2024 campaign. States including Arizona and Wisconsin have seen legal decisions that reduce restrictions on vigilante monitoring, opening the way for possible voter intimidation. Now, if you're standing at a poll intimidating people, like we had elections here, and we have a very small little community where I live, and we went down there, cast our vote. You had the Labor, LNP, the Greens was there once. One crazy old bitch from the Greens was there. And then you had One Nation. And basically, the LNP people, which, if you're an American watching the show, LNP is kind of like a version of the Republicans. Not really, but that's a very broad spectrum there. LNP they were hovering around the entrance, which is just a little concrete pathway there with giant umbrellas because it's a nice hot day, and blocking the entrance, nearly hitting you. I was carrying my daughter at the time with the umbrella, and just being rude, arrogant, and like vultures. Now, the Labor government, which is the woke leftist Democratic Party here in Australia, I'd call it, kind of not as bad as what the Democrats are, but you know, they're pushing for misinformation bills and things like that, and they're trying to increase the immigration here in Australia to the points that where we can't even house our own people, which is where we're at the moment. They were sitting under their little gazebo thing, nice and politely out of the way. One Nation representatives, they were quite politely sitting there with their family, handing out pamphlets, and but the LNP, they were blocking the footpath and getting in. That's fucking rude. And I told them so. I said, get the fuck out of the way, and if you hit my daughter with the umbrella, I'm going to break it over your head. Now, doing that doesn't help anyone. That doesn't make me want to vote for LNP, which I didn't anyway. Vote for One Nation all the way through, even though it doesn't matter. But, at least my conscience is clear, and I'm not voting for one of the two major parties that are basically ass-fucking us into destitution here in this country. But polling booths and things like that should be monitored. They should make sure everyone's doing their job, but you got to do it carefully, you got to do it quietly, and you got to do it legally. And I don't think anyone's doing it illegally, because there would be reports of arrests and people getting thrown in jail for it. The fact sheet makes a series of recommendations to poll workers ahead of the vote, way to head off political violence, including de-escalation techniques, research to identify threats, communicating accurate information on elections, and community outreach and dialogue on election security. The BDI report says these steps can improve US political violence Improve US political violence. Great. Warning infrastructure to help prevent the amplification of rumors, false claims, and unfounded threat messaging amid the suppressing voter turnout in targeted communities. Now, if the Americans haven't learned anything from the last election, is get out and vote early. Make sure you vote. Make sure you take people to vote with you. And do not ignore your duty as a citizen and go out and vote, especially if you're voting for Donald Trump. Not so much if you're voting for the Democratic Party. You can stay home if you want. No one really cares. But if you're a Republican and if you're trying to make sure that your family is secure and safe for the next 4 years at least, and that you have a two-party system instead of just a single Democratic Party, get out and vote. Make sure that you get out and vote, and please get out and vote. Get off your ass and vote. Republicans and right-wingers do not vote in this country here in Australia. They do not vote in America either. They just seem to let the leftists do whatever they want and ruin our country. Then we sit there kicking and screaming and bitching and complaining that they've ruined the country after we've sat at home and ignored the calls to get out and vote. So please, if you've got nothing to do today, get out and vote. If you've got nothing to do on election day, just clear the whole day. If you have to, take a day off work, it is worth doing that just to get out and cast your vote. Make sure that your voice is heard, and at least when you've done that, you can sit there, even if Donald Trump loses, or if, say, you're a Democrat, and even if the Democratic Party loses, Kamala Harris loses, then you can sit there and say, well, at least I cast my vote. You imagine the shame and the anger and the frustration of people that after the failed election of whichever party you're running for, you're sitting there and go, well, I got it. Your friends are out there getting votes out and you're putting their votes in, and you're sitting there quietly, pretending that you voted, but you really didn't when you really should have. Please get out and vote. If you don't get out and vote, you have no one to blame but yourself. Okay, so the United States is headed for a civil war. It is on the verge of a civil war, and I think the election is going to be the tipping point with something along the lines of what happened last time with the Chaz Chop situation in Portland, Seattle. And I think some sort of massive, if Donald Trump wins, hopefully he does, if he wins, I think some sort of massive civil unrest will occur on the left, and it will probably start somewhere in Portland or DC. Not too sure anywhere else it might start, but Portland seems to be a haven for it. It seems to be a rat nest of this extremist leftist and Antifa political view, and lazy people that don't want to work for what they get, and they just want handouts from the government. Now, last time Donald Trump was in power, they decided to take over a section of the city, which accounted for like several murders, rapes, you name it. It was basically a no-go zone for anyone who didn't want uh, this leftist communist utopia that they were pushing. People were getting assaulted every single day in there, and they were pretending that it was some sort of great utopia that they'd founded, and they were making vegetable gardens in parks and destroying public property, robbing people's places. There were massive shootings, killing people for no reason because they were driving down the street, and they just decided that we don't want police, but we're going to make our own police, and then we're going to shoot people that we just don't like the look of. It's almost like it's everything that they said that they're against. But I believe that if something is going to happen in the US, I believe it could start with something like Chaz Chop, where it was a law unto their own, and these leftists took over a massive city block. Now, if that happens and Donald Trump goes and sends the police in and sends the military in to disrupt that, to break it down and get it back to normal civil discourse and civil order, then that could be a triggering mechanism for somewhere like LA or California to not so much secede, but kind of just ignore any federal government like they kind of did during COVID anyway. New York City as well, depending, it might go red this time. We don't know. There's a massive wave of red coming out of New York State at the moment, and hopefully it trends. But places like that, the Democratic strongholds, could lock themselves down and demand that, I don't know, that they have their own government or something along those lines. It could be a lot smaller. These people could just bend over and accept, the will of the people, but I highly doubt it. They do not like losing power, and they do not like Donald Trump. And they have spent the last however many years, nearly a decade now, screaming that he's a rapist, he's a fascist, he's a Nazi, saying all of the worst words in the sun, saying that he is going to kill every single immigrant in the country. You name it. They're just making shit up at this point. And I believe that this rhetoric can't. It's gone too far now. They can't. They've tried to kill Donald Trump on several occasions. They've shot him at least once now in the ear, killing some of his supporters behind him, unfortunately, as well. And they just, there's no backpedaling for these people. They just get worse and worse. Kamala Harris has just literally called him a Nazi. Tampon Tim's out there saying that these people are garbage and things. Joe Biden saying they're garbage. Tampon Tim saying horrible things as well, whilst playing Fortnite, apparently, which is god awful. What a terrible idea. But, if a comedian gets on stage and calls Puerto Rico a pile of garbage as a joke, that's heresy. But when Joe Biden, the sitting president, calls, was it like at least 65 million MAGA supporters garbage, then that's okay, because, well, he's allowed to say. I'd rather a joke come from a comedian than say violent rhetoric like Joe Biden has said coming from the sitting president. But far right extremism in America doesn't really seem to have any sway. Like that, you can see here that these people are pushing that it's going to be a far right thing. I highly doubt that, unless there's some massive, very obvious, like completely obvious, like Donald Trump wins the election, he wins the popular vote, and he also wins the other, whatever they call it over there, the other vote, and he wins both, and he wins the election, and then the Democratic Party just refuses to get out of the White House, which I highly doubt happening. But if that was going to happen, then I would expect to see a massive uprising from what you call right-wing extremism. But that would just be normal everyday Americans are not putting up with the Democratic Party, refusing to secede power to the rightfully elected president. But that's a like 0.01% of a chance of happening. What I do see happening is leftists and protesters and BLM, things like that, protesting, taking over part of a city, and then there being a contention point between them and law enforcement and the government, and people getting killed. There's people saying that they're expecting to see 1,000 deaths from political violence by, April or something. Whether that happens or not, I do not know, but I would put money on civil war or something that we could attribute to a civil war decades later, when we look back on history, saying it was a civil war, I put money on that happening. Honestly, I don't see anyone calming down the rhetoric. I don't see anyone stepping back from the edge. I don't see anyone, putting water on the fire. They're just pouring gasoline, and it's going to erupt eventually. It's going to erupt. And if the Americans don't get their shit together and count those votes quickly, and they don't count them properly, and they don't do it legally, which is, they're already doing a lot of illegal shit in America at the moment over these votes. And some dodgy videos have been coming out on X as well, saying that, people can't cast their vote for Donald Trump, and then when they go to put their vote in for Donald Trump, it comes up as Kamala Harris. Things like that. If that kind of stuff keeps happening, and there's heaps of video evidence of it, and there's proof that this I don't know, Democratic thing is, turning the wheel for their own favor, then I can see a lot of people dying. I can see a lot of people picking up arms and defending what the Constitution stands for and what their rights are. And we all know who will win in the end. It will be, the right wing. It will be the Republican side. They're the ones with the army. They're the ones with the support. They're the ones with the weapons. And the leftists can't even, they can't even organize a small community without killing each other. And they don't even know what sex or gender they are for the day. I can hardly ever see any of those people becoming useful soldiers in a war. It's not like they'd be, leading it or anything, but they would be the cannon fodder, and they're quite useless. They can't even hold down a job, let alone get up early to go on patrol or do anything like that, or put up with the terrible living standards that someone in a civil war or a war would be able to have to put up with. I don't see leftists doing that. I see a lot of those blue-haired little libtards going home to their mum and dad and crying because their friends have been shot or they've been imprisoned because they decided to become little Antifa terrorist groups. But I digress. We'll get into this story. Here's the United States on the verge of civil war. This is an opinion piece. The United States on the verge of civil war is possibly been frequently asked to raise a connection with the outcome of 2024 presidential election. It's also the subject of a hit dystopian film premiered in last April. I still haven't seen that movie, but apparently it was pretty shit. Just shows how bad reporters and media are, more than how a civil war would really go out. 3 decades ago, we could all laugh at the absurdity of the White House being destroyed by aliens and hit science fiction film Independence Day to it. Today, however, an all-out assault on the White House depicted in Alex Garland's Civil War leaves audiences secretly discomforted by its plausibility. Although an actual civil war resulting in the 24 election remains highly unlikely, the range of sufficiently alarming scenarios cannot be prudently dismissed and discounted, as the 2 recent attempts to form President Donald Trump's life have shown. Trump's conviction last spring on 34 counts of falsifying business records further sharpened the political friction already embedded in the American politics. Also, almost immediately, threats of judiciary and the array of Trump's perceived and actual political enemies intensified. Our judicial system has been weaponized against the American people, was typical of the view expressed in the die-hard MAGA circles. We are left with no option but to take matters to our own hands, far-right media personalities, Stu Peters asserted on Telegram feed. Whoopie-doo. Other social media platforms lit up with similar post times to start capping some lefties. One post on a Gateway Pundit urged, this cannot be fixed by voting. So they've gone and picked out some posts from random people on the internet and said that is their proof that far right's going to do something. It's not going to be the far right that does anything. They can barely get out and vote. They couldn't get out and vote last time. They didn't do anything last time. Everyone carries on about January 6th. No one was killed. No one brought guns to overthrow the government. All this gun-toting right-wing extremists, thousands of them at the Capitol building to overthrow the government, which is what their story is. None of them decided to bring guns. The only people with guns were the leftists and the police. None of these extremists who were like moving podiums from one room to another, taking photos and wandering around the Capitol building, getting a sightseeing tour. None of them decided, oh fuck, I better bring my AR-15 if we're going to overthrow the government, because that's not what they were doing. That's not what they were doing. I'm not going to get into January 6th debate, but the media, whether it's leftist media or even right-wing media, say Fox News, which are barely right-wing, none of them truly believe that it's the right wing that are going to do anything. The right wing never do anything. That's 90% of the problem and 90% of why we are where we are. It's they never do anything. They just go, oh well, Democrats have just done this or leftists has just done this, and now they're castrating children and they're putting pedophiles into our schools and they're doing all these things. Oh well, and then they don't even get out and vote for it. Christians don't get out and vote. Right wingers don't get out and vote compared to leftists. It's insane. They need to. If violence is going to come from anywhere, it will be coming from the left. Whether it's, as you said here, 34 counts of falsifying business records. That was a trumped up charge, and they're putting their political opponents in jail. They're arresting their political opponents, and then they go out. They have the nerve to go out on the news and say that they're worried that if Donald Trump gets in, he's going to arrest his political opponents. You're already doing that. You are putting the ex-sitting president in prison. You're trying to put the ex-sitting president in prison. You put him up on all these bullshit fake charges. You changed the law on a case so you can go back and charge him with, what was that Eugene Carroll case where it was, they found that he didn't rape her, but because he said that he didn't rape her, he has to pay her a whole bunch of money. Find him liable for a rape case because he said that he didn't rape her, and that upset her and that caused her some distress. So we know you didn't rape her, but we're just going to say that you're liable in the case because you said you didn't rape her and you said it publicly, so you need to give her money. The left accuses you of what they are doing. Joe Biden accused Donald Trump of Russia collusion. Hillary Clinton accused him of Russia collusion. What happened? Oh, it turns out Joe Biden was the one colluding with Ukraine, and Hillary Clinton was the one making up the fake Steele dossier and trying to get Trump put in prison or thrown out of the running for colluding with Russia when it was them doing it. Everything that they say Donald Trump or the right has done is what they are doing. If they go out and they say that you're harvesting ballots or you're committing voter fraud, that is what they're doing. If they're saying that you're going to turn the United States into a civil war, that is their plan. They did it last time. The amount of deaths and protests and damage that they did to the country with BLM protests and shit like that when during COVID as well, it was all the leftists protesting. All the right-wing people just sat down and accepted the government decree. I mean, a lot of people, right-wing states weren't as bad as left-wing states. Same here in Australia. Like Queensland was really a lot better off than the rest of the country. They still piled up in like sheep formation and did everything the government told them to, like good little sheep. I mean, everyone went and got the jab, and then everyone went and did what they were told by the government, and it was a pain in the ass for people like me who stood out and said, no, you can all get fucked. And still to this day, I have people telling me that they went and got the jab because they were forced to, and blah, blah, blah. It's like, no. You decided to go and get the jab because you didn't want to be left out. 90% of these people didn't want to be left out. I know a lot of people that did have to get the jab to keep their job and things like that, but a lot of these people just went and got the jab so they weren't one of us, weren't one of those extremist conspiracy theorist people who didn't want to go and get the jab. But these leftists continuously push the envelope of violence. They keep killing right-wing people. I mean, they were shooting people, Trump supporters dead in the street, and no one ever batted an eye over it. No one ever gave retaliatory strikes against the leftists or Democrats. It seems that the violence only comes one way, and it's from the Democratic Party and their voters, because that's what kind of people they are. People saying that the right wing is going to start, World War III or or a civil war is utterly insane. We all know the violence comes from the left. It's absolutely insane. And it's not just in America. It's all over the world. The violence comes from the left. Every single country, it's a leftist violence. Now, I don't see the election being a simple affair in the next couple of days. I see votes taking a very, very long time to get counted and cast. And basically, I think at this point, if Donald Trump wins Pennsylvania and maybe Georgia and probably one more state, then he's got it in the bag and there's nothing they can do about it. But whether that happens or not, we will see. I pray to God you guys get out and vote, because this election isn't just about the Americans. This election is about all of us at this point, because if civil war kicks off in the US and the Democrats refuse to hand over power, or it's proven that they were cheating massively, because I can't see Kamala winning legally. That's how bad of a candidate she is.